Սիրելի աղջիկս Նուրա, հայրդ եւ ես քեզի շատ կարոցած ենք։
My darling daughter, Noura,
Եվ կհավատանք,
your father and I miss you terribly.
որ դու
We think it's time for you to come home.
ցավով գքրեմ,
I'm sorry to tell you, Sarik Nene passed away.
մոդադինեն,
Soon, all the old people you loved as a child will disappear one by one. Come home with your camera to document and record the stories of the elders, the heroic stories of your village Anjar, and the history of your people. Come back soon before it's too late. With love, your praying mother, Sarik.
եւ աղոթող մայրը Ծաղիկ։
I'm going back to Lebanon, to my village Anjar, for the first time in many years. "15 years ago, I passed through these mountains on my way to Canada to leave behind the horrors of the Lebanese Civil War that tore my country apart. These rocks haunt me with black goats roaming at night, carrying me back to memories, stories, faces, and nightmares of the Armenian genocide. I never thought I would return to Anjar, but my mother is calling me back. It seems Anjar has not changed much since I left. I remember walking on this dusty road, holding my mother's hand as a little girl, to go visit an old woman named Sarik Nene. The woman my mother wrote me about in her letter. The woman who died. Sarik Nene lived alone. Her garden was my favorite in all of Anjar. She had beautiful flowers. her house. One room with a blue door. Now she's gone. I remember the first time I met Sarik Nene. It was right here. She was watering her flowers. I was 8 years old. My family moved to Anjar when I was a little girl. My father, Barkev, was born in Beirut, Lebanon. My mother, Zarik, was born in Aleppo, Syria. In the late 50s, they met in Aleppo. My 3 elder sisters and I were born in Aleppo. I was 1 year old when we moved to Beirut. A year later, we had a new baby sister. Mother named her Greta. She was an adorable child. I loved her so much. She was my little doll. Now we were 5 girls: Serena, Irma, Berta, Nura, and Greta. My mother claimed she did not purposely rhyme our names to end in the letter A, but no one believed her. A year later, in the summer of 1974, we moved to Anjar. Anjar is a small Armenian village in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. Small enough that even children could walk around the village in a few hours' time. During the hot, long summer days in Anjar, my mother didn't allow me to play outside. I couldn't watch television. I had nothing else to do but walk with her, to visit the homes of her newfound friends and the endless number of old people who lived in the village. At the time, I hated my mother for not letting me go out to play. I hated being dragged to visit old people all day long. I even hated that I had to call every old woman in Anjar Nene and every old man Babuk, local Armenian words of endearment for grandmothers and grandfathers. I dreaded sitting with these nenes and babuks, listening to them jabber on hour after hour, about the old days. I also resented the fact that my 4 sisters were either too old or too young to accompany my mother on her endless visits. Every time I complained to my mother, she said, I want you to learn their stories. When you grow up, you will realize that Anjar is a special place. Moses Babuk was one of the first people I met in Anjar. His house was a 10-minute walk from ours. On his coffee table, he always had a dish full of candy and a gun. He was a sweet old man who loved guns. He even gave it a name. Dolma, he called it. I was scared of the shotgun. But he always had a huge smile when he told stories of his gun and adventures on a certain mountain I would come to know very well. My mother often took me to visit an old woman named Gabaid Mayrum. The old teacher who sat on her sidewalk and talked to every single person who walked by her house. I had heard stories that once upon a time, she used to be the most beautiful woman in the village. But she had suffered so much that she had lost all her beauty. But when I met her, she was already old and wrinkled. She looked just like every other old woman in the village, who talked a lot and told the same stories over and over again. Anjar was so boring, and my mother was so ruthless about bringing me along with her. I decided I had to get my revenge. When I had the chance to escape my mother's attention, I went raiding the gardens of Anjar. I stole the flowers of the old women. I stole so many flowers that soon I was known in all of Anjar as Zarik's little flower thief. My mother tried punishing me, but it never worked. She even displayed my stolen flowers on top of the television, which was used only as a flower stand. The old women with the pretty gardens often came to complain to my mother. As soon as I saw them coming, I ran and hid in our garden. Sadik Nene was one of them. She even came to complain when I had not stolen any of her flowers. I think she was lonely. Still, every time she saw me, she would put her hand on my head and say the same thing to me. One day, when you're grown up, I'll be gone. Come visit my grave and bring me flowers. You owe me many flowers, my little flower thief. One time, my mother dragged me to apologize to an old woman whose flower garden I had raided the day before. I had never met the old woman. I only knew of her pretty flowers. Her name was Yersapet Nene. She spoke in a strange Armenian dialect, which I did not understand. She also sang all the time. Her daughter Sarah translated her mother's stories into normal Armenian so we could understand. From hundreds of visits to Yersapet Nene's house, I only remember one thing, that every time she sang a song about her childhood, her daughter Sarah began to tell stories of black goats. She said they were scared of black goats. I thought that's silly. Bears or lions are scary, not goats. More than anything else, these nenes bored me to death. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Finally, the summer came to an end. It was time for school. I was so excited. I was going to play, and most of all, I was going to escape the boring visits with my mother. But it turned out that school was cancelled quite often that year. And so I was back to visiting with my mother, and I met some new people in Anjar. Fortunately for me, Zabel Nene was one of them. She was an excellent köfte maker. Köfte is an Armenian meat and bulgur dish, my favorite food. There were always women gathered in her house, cooking and preparing wedding feasts. I liked Zabel Nene and her friends. They laughed and danced and didn't talk about goats and boring mountains. They used to tell me that when I get married one day, they will make köfte for my wedding. I didn't have the heart to tell them that I had decided never to get married. I guess I liked them too much. Before I knew it, I had spent my first year in Anjar. I had started to like visiting people, but I tried to hide it from my mother. Soon, I got to know everyone in the village. I knew which nene made the best oil cookies and tonir bread. I knew which babuk would give me more than one candy to take home for my little sister Greta. I learned their ancient recipes and the cooking traditions of Anjar. I was a happy child again. I started to fall in love with the old people and their stories. I sat there as they talked, but this time I began to listen to their stories. Every story had a reference to Musadagh. Later, I discovered the significance of this place called Musadagh. It was the old homeland of the people of Anjar. All the nenes and babugs I knew were born in Musadagh. The elders told me that Musadagh was a beautiful land where 6 small Armenian villages stood nestled at the foothills of the Green Mountains beside the sparkling blue Mediterranean Sea. When I asked my mother where this Musadagh was and when we could go there, she said, Musadagh is in a far-off land called Turkey. Since many years, Armenians don't live there anymore. She said, Musadagh is just a memory of the old people. Babuks kept telling me stories about Musadagh weddings, celebrations, and the beautiful Musa mountain. I heard so many wonderful stories about Musadagh that I began to dream about the place. And I wondered why these people would ever have left this beautiful paradise. Soon, I dreamt so much about Musadagh that I believed I had been there. I was an innocent child with a big imagination, but my innocence did not last long. Of 1979, thousands of Armenians escaping the civil war in Lebanon sought safety in my village, Anjar, as it was a quiet Armenian oasis in the Bekaa Valley, well protected by the neighboring Syrian military base, yet far away from both the Israeli border and Beirut. Compared to elsewhere in Lebanon, Anjar was a veritable sanctuary. In a matter of one short month, my village of 2,000 people grew to more than 10,000. Every family, including my own, took in Armenian refugees who had escaped the Lebanese Civil War. Suddenly, it dawned on me that I was living in a war. The war in my country, Lebanon, had been going on for 4 years, and yet I had remained oblivious to its existence. The adults didn't talk of war around children. Somehow, at the age of 9, I didn't realize that the reason we had no electricity, no television stations, no heating, no school on certain days was because of the war. But war had arrived in Anjar. 8,000 Armenian refugees were now living in my village. They had no work. They had nothing to do but sit around with the people of Anjar, drink coffee, and talk about war. Parents were no longer able to protect their children from hearing conversations about violence and killing. In this atmosphere of confusion and fear, life became difficult for all of us. But most of all, it was difficult for the old Armenians, whose memories of past wars began to resurface. The nenes and the babuks of my village listened as the new refugees talked about the Lebanese Civil War. These old people, who used to tell me happy stories of Musadagh, all of a sudden started to talk about the horrors from their own past. Horrors of a war they called Yegern. Later, I would come to know this Yegern as the 1915 Armenian genocide committed by the Turkish government. The old people shared stories of their survival from death marches and deportations. Stories of how the Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire, as well as those in Armenia proper, were being annihilated by the Turks. My happy childhood in Anjar was over. My village was overrun with refugees from current and past wars. With the distant sound of mortar rounds ever in the background, I couldn't distinguish between the stories and the wars. In 1915, during the genocide, Palazian Nene's father was among 8 people who were escaping the Turks. They had a little baby with them. The baby was crying. The baby's mother had no milk to feed the child. Her husband warned her that the baby was going to give them away. They were all going to die because of the baby. The mother had no choice. She put her baby in a ditch, arranged a few stones around it. Prayed and left. The mother kept looking back to see what happened to her baby. She was worried about the dogs. Later, she saw someone picked up her baby. She thanked God that at least the dogs did not tear her baby to pieces. Sarah told me her mother's story. Yersapet Nene lived through the genocide. The Turks came down from the hills to deport the people. There were 9 members in her mother's family. They all died of starvation on the way. Her mother, Yersapet, is the only one who survived. Ever since, when she saw black goats on the mountain, she was afraid. She ran to the house yelling, "The Turks are coming," then locked the door and hid. She thought the goats were Turks coming to kill them again. Sarah was 7 years old when they lived in tents in Anjar. They had no shoes. Everyone walked bare feet to get water all the way from the spring. She was carrying her little sister in her arms, walking to the village spring, singing. They came and took her sister away from her. She didn't know why. Her sister had died in her arms. From that day on, whenever I walked on the dirt road to the village springs, I never carried my younger sister Greta. I was afraid she would die in my arms. Everyone I knew had genocide stories to tell, even my mother. even my own father.
باكر عمم يقبل مني يغير شاتين أزب بلو يقالين ديجلا كدين.
My father told me a story he heard from his father, my grandfather. In 1915, my grandfather, along with his parents, 6-year-old brother and 5-year-old sister, were being deported. A Turk lifted the 6-year-old brother by the leg and smashed him on the ground. The boy died. He then tied a rope around the dead boy's leg and forced his little sister to drag her brother's dead body to the Euphrates River. The little girl was crying as she was dragging the body. They say at that time she went mad. Later, I found out my father is named after that little boy, Barkev, his uncle. And the little girl, his aunt, died years later in an asylum in Cyprus. That summer, I stopped stealing flowers. I started seeing black goats on the mountains of Anjar, bodies sinking in the waters of the Euphrates. I could hear the bulldozers collecting corpses from the streets of Beirut and the cries of the orphaned children. My mother told me that her mother was also an orphan. During the genocide, my great-grandparents, along with my 5 great uncles, had all died. My grandmother was a 4 or 5-year-old girl. She was sitting among the dead bodies of her family, crying. An Arab man passing by heard her cries and took her home. She was raised by the Arab family in a small village in Syria. I am the daughter of genocide survivors. And you are their granddaughter. When school started that year, I only watched the other children play. I sat at my desk, wanting to find out why there was a war in Lebanon, why the Turks were killing so many Armenians. I had so many questions. That year in school, I learned that there is a place where all Armenians once came from, a land called Armenia, with a history that goes back more than 3,000 years. I learned that we Armenians once had an empire and famous kings, and that Armenia was the first nation in the world to adopt Christianity. I learned that the Ottoman Turkish Empire was a powerful empire which ruled for nearly 6 centuries. Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul in Turkey, was the capital of this Islamic empire, ruled by the Sultan. Many Armenians, Jews, Greeks, Arabs, and Kurds were citizens of the Ottoman Empire. But just like all empires in history, the Ottoman Empire was due to collapse, and in the late 19th century, it was ready to fall. A group of young Turkish intellectuals, known by the name of the Young Turks, came up with a political ideology to try and save the empire from its downfall. In 1908, the Young Turks overthrew the Ottoman Sultan, and by 1912 gained full control of the government. Their main leaders were Talat Pasha, Minister of Interior, and Enver Pasha, Minister of Defense. I'll never forget the day my teacher displayed the photos of the most evil men of the 20th century and explained their ideologies. He said the motto of the Young Turks was pan-Turkism and pan-Islamism, ideologies which advocated the revival of the Turkish nation based on racial purity. Turkey was to be only for the Turks, and they devised a plan to create a Turkish empire devoid of Christian minorities, especially the Armenians. I learned that the Young Turks' ideology of racial purity was one that was to bring destruction and death to millions of people in the years to come. It was the First World War. The Ottomans, taking advantage of the war, told the Armenian citizens of their empire that they had to be deported for their own protection. Instead, according to their plan, they drove columns of desperate Armenians from all over the empire into the scorching deserts of Syria. Those who were not slaughtered outright on the way were left to perish from heat, hunger, exhaustion, and from the further physical brutality of the Turkish soldiers. I always wanted to know what the Turks did to Aram Babuk's mother. The sweet old man who lived right beside the big church. My mother and I visited him on Sundays, and we cried when he told his stories. But Aram Babuk never cried. During the genocide, he was 5 years old. He remembered everything. The men between the ages of 18 and 45 were drafted to the Ottoman army. His father was one of them. Armenian soldiers who went into the Turkish army never returned. Those under 18 and over 45 were handcuffed and taken to the edge of the village. They were shot and thrown into mass graves. Then they gathered the women, the old and the children to the edge of the village and killed them all. My mother used to be a beauty queen. The Turks took her away. She was the only woman in the village with such beauty. It's been 15 years since I walked on this road to go visit the old woman who had suffered so much she had lost her beauty. Gabba in my room gave me a big hug. She pulled up her chair and sat on her sidewalk. It was like the old days, only this time I'm ready to listen to her stories. She told me many stories that day, from her childhood in Musadagh to her move to Anjar. But later, when I checked my footage, I realized something had gone wrong. I lost most of her interview, except a few usable minutes of footage. Here, She is telling about the day they arrived in Anjar with trains and trucks. Anjar was a swampland. There was not even one green tree in the whole area. They lived in tents. They had no water. People died. They suffered a lot. A mountain of suffering, and I'm still suffering. Jesus is not taking me near him so that I can rest in peace. I didn't have a chance to go back to reshoot another interview. Saturday morning, the church bells rang in Anjar. Gabba in my room had died in her sleep the night before. She took to her grave 94 years of stories, beginning with her first memories at the age of 6 of the 1915 Armenian genocide. Now, there were only a few elders left in the village who had lived through the events. I went to see them, to hear their stories of how the people of Musadar survived the genocide. Elmas Nene and Vartui Nene were innocent children playing in the fields of Musadar in April of 1915, when the Turks were sending deportation orders to Armenian cities, towns, and villages. Elmas was 7 years old, and Vartuhi was 9. When we lived in Musadar, we were really happy. We had a good life. But when all these problems started, we knew we could not live peacefully any longer. By July, the people of Musadar knew for certain that their turn for deportation would come soon. The leaders of the 6 Musadar villages held a meeting. Somehow they knew that complying with the deportation order meant death. Instead, they decided to resist the Ottomans. They planned to climb the Musa mountain and fight the Turks. They had 2 choices, either fight or die. There was no other way. On July the 30th, 1915, as the villagers were secretly preparing to climb the mountain, the deportation order arrived in Musadar. The addendum signed by the sub-district governor of the province gave the village leaders 7 days to prepare for exile. The deportation of Musadar was slated for August 7th, 1915. Immediately, over 4,000 people secretly started packing food and what little ammunition they had for their hunting guns and began to ascend the mountain. Elmas Nene asked her mother why everybody was crying. Her mother replied, "Because we have to climb the mountain." Elmas Nene said, "Great, I get to collect lots of roses." Her father used to bring her roses every time he went hunting on the mountain. Big roses from Mount Musa. All the people were carrying their things and going up the mountain. Her mother told her she had to take care of her little sister Agnes. A 6-month-old baby, but a big baby. How was she going to carry her? Her mother took the scarf off her head and tied it around Elmas Nene's little body so she could carry Agnes on her back. It was hot, they were hungry and tired. Agnes was crying, and so was she. As scheduled, on August the 7th, 1915, the Turks arrived to carry out the deportation. But they found the villages of Musadagh virtually empty. The majority of the villagers had braved the exhausting 20-hour climb to the mountaintop. Unfortunately, around 2,000 people were still scattered throughout the villages. Some already packed and on their way to the mountain. But it was too late. The Turks had arrived. They were deported, and most of them perished in the deserts of Syria. Including the parents and 6 siblings of Yersapet Nene, along with Sarik Nene's entire family. Looking back on it now, I know why she was lonely, why she came to our house every day to complain. She had no one to put flowers on her grave. I went to see Misak Babug. He gave me a big hug and seemed to forget I also stole from his garden. He told me what it was like for his father on the mountain. The Ottoman army settled in the empty villages of Musadagh. They knew the Armenians were hiding on the mountain, and they planned to destroy them. They began bombarding the mountain. The first time the Turks attacked, they had around 2,000 soldiers. But they did not succeed. The Armenians had set up several fighting posts around the mountaintops. The Turks lost some men and withdrew to get reinforcements. Moses Der Kalustian, a 21-year-old, was the leader of the Musadagh resistance operation. With no prior experience, he planned the battle strategies and formed his own army of villagers. He regimented 43 units at different posts around the mountain, each comprised of 12 men, headed by a corporal. A team of preteen youngsters known as telephone boys maintained communication between the post's headquarters and the trenches. The logistics of the camp were organized by Reverend Anderyasyan, Yesai Yakubian, and a long list of men and women who contributed their skills and gave their lives for their cause.
Türkleri meri nenen kınaç. Yerport dişker ura dişker pajdan dişker.
During the battle, Misak's father, Garabed, was selected to join a special group of 40 men, the bravest and strongest, who ran from one post to the next, depending on which post the Turks were attacking heavily.
Ason hongvas. Orma derik alışanı. Orma suki. İncibat met. Misakısa. Yesari çeyizlaşlar.
During the battle, Der Kalustian, the military leader, was visiting the posts to check on his fighters. He noticed Garabed's boots were full of blood. He was shot in the leg. Der Kalustian ordered Garabed to get medical help. But Misak's father, Garabed, refused, saying he was needed to fight for their freedom. My name is Misak. I am the son of the hero, Garabed. Misak's father lived, but Marinene's uncle was one of the heroes who died during the battle. He was 22 years old. He was a nice man. On the place where he fell on the mountain, a tree has grown by his feet and another tree near his head. He went to heaven. Unable to crush the Armenian resistance, the Turks laid siege to the mountain and planned to starve the villagers to death. 5 weeks of heavy battles had depleted the food and ammunition supplies on the mountain. They had no means of getting supplies from land. On all sides except for one, they were surrounded by the Ottomans. The Armenians looked to the Mediterranean Sea and prayed for a miracle. The women sewed a cross on a white bed sheet. The men tied it to 2 poles and displayed it on top of the mountain. Hoping a Christian ally would see our sign and God will send us help. Every day on top of the mountain, around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, Elmas Nene, along with the other children, used to gather for church sermons. One day they were told the church gathering was cancelled and that all the children had to run home and stay with their mothers. Moses Babuk was one of those children. He knows why they were sent home to their mothers. The villagers had spotted a French warship patrolling the Mediterranean Sea nearby. A naval officer with his telescope had seen their SOS flag on the mountaintop and had informed his captain. The Armenians on the mountain cheered and waved back at the sailors on the warship. The French cruiser Guichen dispatched a boat towards the mountain. The commander of naval operations of the Mediterranean squadron was Dartige de Fournay. After several telegrams to French headquarters, and after days waiting around for a reply, Dartige de Fournay made the decision himself to save the people of Musadar. He called on other warships to come for aid. Elmas Nene says it was a miracle. When the dispatch boats approached the warship, Elmas Nene was very scared, afraid to climb the thin ropes up onto the big ship. They were thin as her arm. She said, "I'm not going up there." By September the 14th, 1915, all 4,088 Musadarians had been rescued and were safely on board the 7 warships, 6 French and 1 British cruiser. These are the words from the memoirs of a young Musadarian on board the French rescue warship Désir. As the ship started moving, the sailors began to distribute food to the people. The deep affection and the immense care of these men was amazing. We were poorly dressed, yet these French sailors gave us a hero's reception. Unable to hold back their tears, they exclaimed, "You are brave people, lions, you are heroes." Night fell, and many people had no idea where we were being taken. Gradually, we fell asleep, and the ship continued to move fast to reach its destination. By morning, the Musadar people arrived in the Port Said refugee camp in Egypt. Throughout my 5 years of research for this film, I found many archives, photographs, faces. But when I touched this map of the refugee camp in Port Said, I broke down in tears. I recognize almost every name on this survivors index. The parents of the old women, the names of the fighters, the tents of the nenes and babuks of Anjar. Here is the tent of Vartuhi Nene. Now, when I look at her, I can feel the 100 years of hardship she lived. Here is the tent of Gabbait Mayrum. For me, she is always beautiful. Here is Elmas Nene's tent. Here is the tent where Moses Babuk slept proudly beside his hero father and his hunting gun, Dolma. The people of Musadagh lived in this refugee camp in Port Said for 4 years. They worked, ran their schools, prayed in their tent church. And every year in the month of September, on the anniversary of the resistance battle, they carried the cross flag and marched around the refugee camp in Port Said, celebrating their survival. And they waited year after year for their final destiny. During the next 24 years, they moved and relocated several times. In 1939, they packed their bags for the last time and embarked on a ship that would take them to Lebanon. From the port of Tripoli, they boarded trains and trucks bound for Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, their final destination, Anjar. The French had rescued them, and together with the Lebanese, gave them a new homeland. The neighboring Arab villages from Bar Ilyas to Zahle to Qab Ilyas welcomed the new refugees and opened their homes to the women and the children during the first harsh winters in Anjar. while goats still roam mountains everywhere. I wonder how many children today are afraid of goats, as I was. I wonder how many children wake up with nightmares every night, as I did, and how many of them will grow up to write about the wars and genocides in their lives. For years I fought against my past, my country's history of civil war, and the history of my people. With her letter, my mother brought me back to show me how I could once again live with my past. Now, finally, I am able to look beyond my country's political reality and rediscover a rare and precious childhood lived among the heroes of Musadal.